I am Stephen Hargrove, and I am from Oxford, North Carolina, originally by way of the Bullock community. I currently live in Henderson, North Carolina. I'm the pastor of the greatest White Rock Missionary Baptist Church located in Granville County. I'm a professor here at NC State University, teaching in the social work program. I also I'm a 20-year vet. I taught at Advanced Granville Community College prior to teaching at NC State. I'm married to the lovely Leslie Hargrove, and we have 3 adult children and 7 grandchildren, and a lovely dog we call Roger. I had a niece that was diagnosed at 23 years old with stage 4 renal cell carcinoma. She was in a battle for her life. They gave her 6 months initially to live, and I pulled out all the stops. Anything that I could do to save her life is what I was gonna do. So at that time, she did not have health care coverage because she hadn't really worked. She wasn't working at the time, so she had Medicaid, and Medicaid was not going to pay for the medication that she would need to treat the cancer. So we were, like I said, in the battle for her life, and we went to we called pharmaceutical companies. We did everything we could to get her what she needed, but the trial medication that she needed was going to cost us $13,000 a month. As a result of that, through prayer and connections and the doctors fighting on our behalf, Medicaid ended up paying for her medication. So it helped me to realize that people really, really need to pay attention to their health care and what kind of plans they have, what it pays for, what it doesn't pay for. My niece was very sick initially. She got better, and then at the end, of course, she passed away. But it made us realize that, we've really got to pay attention to healthcare and talk to people about the need to make sure that they have the proper healthcare because they don't ever know what kind of situation is going to present itself. And so it's imperative that we recognize that. Now, we all had healthcare. My family members that we worked and we all had health care, but because of her situation, she didn't, and it wouldn't pay for her medication initially. But we had to fight for it. And since then, Medicaid has been expanded. So I'm sure that's going to be a help to the community as well. My sister had renal cell carcinoma first. So there were things about her journey that I started seeing with her daughter, which was my niece. And so I noticed the weight loss, the drastic weight loss. Just like within 2 months, she went from like a 20 to a 12 or 10, size 10. So we were very concerned with the weight loss, but then we realized that she had a knot in her neck, and then her skin had kind of changed. And so I started seeing some similarities. So that's when we had her go to the doctor, and they immediately said it was some type of cancer. They just didn't know what. And so from there, the journey began. You would be surprised at the people who don't know how to speak up for themselves. I'm a talker, and I don't mind saying what I need to say. As right now, for instance, my brother and my aunt both have multiple myeloma, and I go with them to their doctor's appointments, and I talk to doctors, and they may not ask questions that I'm familiar with asking. So it is important, especially with the elderly community, it is very important that they have someone speaking for them, because like my dad, he's 84 years old, and when he goes to his appointments, sometimes he'll just say, "Tell them children," because he doesn't know how to interpret what it is that the doctors are saying. So then in turn, I'll interpret to him what the doctors are saying. And then he'll be like, oh, okay. And so collectively, we'll make a decision on how they should proceed with whatever situation it is. I'm telling you, it is so important to have someone fighting for you, because if you're in a situation like with cancer or something like that, you may not even feel like it or feel up to talking to doctors and dealing with certain things. Or like for my brother, for instance, I had to do his disability for him to make sure he got his disability in place. And so you need people that are able, or at least people with resources to connect connect that family member or friend to. Because in my church, sometimes, I'm the pastor, but sometimes I'm the advocate. I'm a whole lot of stuff to try to make sure that my people's needs are met. At church, we come across a lot of different things at church because you got a collage of people coming from all walks of life. And one of my ministers was diagnosed with dementia, and it was aggressive. And of course, her husband was he was limited educationally, so he relied heavily on me to help him get the things in place for her. So I found that when we were dealing with their insurance, we had to pull in other methods to take care of her needs because her needs were getting greater as the dementia progressed. And so we ended up having to go to the senior center and get, help and direction as to what we needed to do next and how we could do that. And so we realized in that process, a lot of people will be like, when you hear hospice, they be like, oh my God, somebody's dying. But hospice now also provides, if you have a disorder or disease that's terminal, it doesn't mean you're gonna die tomorrow, but they will send somebody into the home, helps, sometimes with bathing and dressing and doing different things like that. They provide, they come in and check their blood pressure and stuff like that. Because Medicaid, if you don't have Medicaid, you can't get an in-home aid. But hospice now has a extension where you can get somebody to come in maybe a few hours a week and do different things, check blood pressure, check sugar, do those different things to try to make sure that person is taken care of. So we had to put those things in place. As a pastor, I find often that when my members come up short, they're gonna come to me because they feel like, you're my pastor, if you don't know, you will find out. And normally that's what I do. My biological mother died when I was 5 years old, and she died from breast cancer. She's had a sister to die with breast cancer. She has nieces that have had breast cancer, but they survived. So, because that's been so long ago, things have changed over time. So yes, breast cancer awareness is personal for me. So I share that story with my church members so that they will get tested, go and get checked. And especially, and we have a healthcare ministry that helps us promote that. So whatever is going on, our healthcare ministry is there to provide whatever information that we need, especially during the times when COVID was bad and all those things were going on with COVID. We had readily accessible information to share with our church members and the community, because we don't just exist for our church, we exist for whosoever will let them come kind of situation. You will be surprised at who's sitting in your congregation that they don't have a clue as to what's out there that can help them. And prevention is a major part of making sure our health is good. Because if you can catch something early, sometimes people may say, well, you know what, I just got this little knot right here. Okay, that's a sign you need to go get that checked. So we try to, and even in our church, when COVID and all that stuff was going on, we connected with other churches by way of our healthcare ministry and encouraged them to have healthcare ministries, and they could collaborate and work towards our community, just having an overall, have some eyes on healthcare for everyone and making sure that everyone is aware of the screenings, aware of the tests that can be done, all of that stuff. So our healthcare ministry is definitely on top of that. It's important for the church to understand that it's not just to preach the gospel, it is also to give information. We need to make sure that people are getting information, because if you're sick and you can't come and work in ministry or help with ministry, we want to make sure that you have the information readily accessible to you. The church, I said earlier, is an institution, and we need to make sure we use that institution so people can grow, people can be the better version of them that they can be. And so church is kind of like this all-encompassing kind of arena. It's every aspect of a person's life. So it's not just about the old people or just about the young people. It's not just about the men or just about the women. It's about the whole picture. I believe church should be like a pie. It has a whole lot of slices, but at the end of the day, it's a pie, and we address every area of a person's life. So healthcare and getting screened and tested and all those kinds of things, that's a slice of the pie. Trying to make a person as whole as they possibly can be. Culture component is vital to our understanding of why people won't go see doctors or why people won't use the experimental or clinical trials or those kinds of things. That was one of the things that stuck out with me today was that how people view clinical trials. And so the Bible says that my people perish for a lack of knowledge. So sometimes people perish because they don't have an understanding of things. And it's events like this that helps people to understand, wait a minute, I've been looking at this all wrong. And then it catered to the people who are actually the ones that are disadvantaged when it comes down to healthcare and understanding the importance of making sure we get the screenings and the tests and those kinds of things. Most of my church members know my experiences and what my family and I have dealt with. So I became the pastor of White Rock, July 2007. 3 weeks into me being pastor, the chairman of my trustee board came to me and said, I need to talk to you. And his wife was here today. And he said, I've been diagnosed with colon cancer. Well, they've tested me for colon cancer and they're gonna give me the results on such and such a day. So I'd just been there 3 weeks. So I showed up for his appointment. He didn't know I was gonna be there. I showed up. And, we prayed and we talked, and then he went back, he and his wife. And when he came back out, they had this funny look on their face. And I was like, okay, God, what is this? So he said, well, Pastor, I do have colon cancer and it has spread. And I said, okay. And he said, now we have to decide what it is that we want to do. So the doctors gave him options, but surgery was not one of them because of the metastasizing of the cancer. So I walked with him his journey to when they asked him about different kinds of treatments and the options that they had and they were offering. And, sometimes when people hear clinical, they hear that you experimented on me and you really don't know if this is going to work. So, and he was a tough guy. So I had to really, really talk to get him to really do some things that he didn't really want to do. And so needless to say, we walked the journey. He had a lot of good days, but he had a lot of bad days. And 3 years later, he passed away. But had he not just stepped into, okay, let these doctors do what they do. Had he not done that, he would have been gone before then. So a lot of times I tell people, people say, well, my grandma used to say, she said, whatever I got, I'm gonna meet Jesus with it, But she suffered though in the end because she had colon cancer and the mass was large and it just hurt and it was painful and that kind of thing. So with my trustee at my church, even though he was sick, it could have been a lot worse had he not did the trial, had he not done the treatment that they were offering. And I think a lot of times people are afraid of clinical trials because in the Black community especially, the first thing they say is they're not going to be poking and sticking on me. And, they have this image of it. But if you can go back to me talking about my niece, had it not been for the clinical trial, she would have been gone in the 6 months. But she lived 7 years, and she lived 7 good years. She didn't live 7 years in a bed like she was in a nursing facility. She had 7 good years. We couldn't be mad about that because the medicine had worked so long and had done so well with her. But at that point, and they had several clinical trials lined up, but because her health had taken such a deterioration, any other trial they did would just work against her because her physical health was just low. So when she did pass away, she really didn't pass away because the cancer progressed. She passed away because her body just was so low and blood pressure couldn't come up. And, so that's kind of what happened. But we were thankful for the trial, the clinical trials. And I recommend, if there's something out there that can help you, I recommend that people go for it. I didn't want to go through losing what I've lost. I didn't want to lose my children. It almost killed me. But I never charged God. I trusted him. Now that's the pastor thing. That's not just the pastor thing, but it's the Christian thing, the God that's in me. And that's what I believe. And I stood on that. Do I cry now? Sure do. I thought I was going to break down on the stage, but I got through it because I know that God is my strength. I learned that God is my refuge and my strength. He's a very present help in the time of trouble. So when you start understanding the nature of God, that's when you stop questioning, why is God doing this? Now, I ain't gonna lie, I didn't question his wisdom, but I did want to understand. So you have to look at the blessing in things and not necessarily how bad something is, but how good God is in that situation.